Buchanan versus Worley case of 1917. Overview. In 1917, the United States Supreme Court would rule racially biased zoning unconstitutional as a result of the Buchanan versus Worley case. This case can be considered the first of many steps taken toward housing equity in the United States. The image displayed is a map of Louisville, Kentucky, depicting the segregated areas. Background of Buchanan versus Worley case. Taking place in Louisville, Kentucky, the case was initially argued in 1916 by William Worley, an African-American civil rights activist. Worley refused to pay full price for a property he purchased from a white real estate agent, Charles Buchanan. Worley argued that the ordinance which barred Black residents from inhabiting white neighborhoods devalued the lot he purchased, as he was unable to reside on the property. Continuation. Worley then proceeded to pursue legal action over the matter. Prior to the case, racial segregation in neighborhoods was common and legal. Upon conclusion of the case, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the ordinance in place violated the 14th Amendment, therefore ruling in favor of William Worley. In its unanimous decision, the Supreme Court found that Louisville's racial zoning ordinance violated the 14th Amendment's Due Protection Clause and marked an infringement of contractual freedom because it interfered with private property sales between whites and Blacks. The image displayed to the left is a newspaper article explaining the Buchanan versus Worley case. Relevance today. The Buchanan versus Worley case remains relevant today, as it was one of the first steps of many taken to work towards fair housing in the United States. Buchanan versus Worley is one of the most significant civil rights cases decided before the modern civil rights era. Starting in 1910, many cities in the South, border states, and lower Midwest responded to a wave of African-American in-migration from rural areas by passing laws mandating residential segregation in housing. More cities were ready to follow suit if the laws survived constitutional challenges. The image to the right is a landmark located in Louisville, Kentucky, explaining the case. The case also serves as a constant reminder to those in planning to promote inclusive and diverse planning practices in urban development. Although the ruling of this case would rule racially biased zoning as unconstitutional, the case would mainly focus on property rights and not equal protection under the law. This indicates that through the small victories, there is still work yet to be done to reach housing equity. Housing issues such as redlining are still taking precedent today, demonstrating that housing equity has yet to be reached. Summary. In the Buchanan versus Worley Supreme Court case, it was determined that racially biased zoning was unconstitutional. The ruling of this case highlighted the racial injustices occurring within urban development practices of the time. Although this case brought mass attention to the issue, more remains to be accomplished. The Buchanan versus Worley case remains significant today as there is still an abundance of housing inequity across the United States. This case continues to incite discussions regarding advocacy for fair housing. This concludes the presentation. I have included a list of sources as well as a list of images. Thank you.